For 2 years, the world's busiest shortcut between Asia and Europe all but emptied, as ships detoured thousands of miles to avoid a single maritime choke point. In 2026, cautious returns are reshaping that map, but no one, carriers or planners, knows how far or how fast this route reset will go. If the Red Sea reopens, global trade rhythms and port congestion could shift overnight. What is really at stake as ships edge back into these critical waters? A glance at the map reveals 2 sharply different lines linking Asia and Europe by sea. One route traces a near straight path through the Indian Ocean, up the Gulf of Aden, and into the narrow Red Sea before slipping north through the Suez Canal into the Mediterranean. The other swings wide, hugging the east coast of Africa, bending around the southern tip at the Cape of Good Hope, and then looping back up the Atlantic toward Europe. These are not subtle variations. The Suez shortcut carves thousands of miles off the journey, offering a direct spine between east and west. In contrast, the Cape Detour is a sweeping arc that stretches voyages by a week or more, pulling ships far from their usual lanes. On a chart, the difference is stark. 2 corridors, one cutting through the heart of Egypt, the other circling the continent's southern edge. This is the basic puzzle facing global shipping. When and how do flows return to the shortcut? And what does that do to the map of world trade? Every shortcut has a gatekeeper. For ships moving between Asia and Europe, that gate is the Bab el Mandeb Strait, a slender waterway squeezed between Djibouti and Yemen. Almost every vessel heading for the Red Sea must pass through this narrow passage, making it one of the world's critical maritime choke points. From the open waters of the Indian Ocean, ships funnel into the Gulf of Aden, then line up for Bab el Mandeb. Once through, the Red Sea stretches north for more than 1,000 miles, bordered by Africa to the west and the Arabian Peninsula to the east. At its northern tip, the Suez Canal cuts directly through Egypt, providing a man-made link to the Mediterranean. This canal is not just a shortcut. It is a controlled corridor with strict transit rules and a schedule that shapes the flow of global trade. From there, ships fan out across the Mediterranean, connecting to major European ports. Each of these places, the Gulf of Aden, Bab el Mandeb, the Red Sea, the Suez Canal, and the Mediterranean, forms a chain. If one link falters, the entire route is at risk, reminding shipping planners why choke points matter. In 1869, the opening of the Suez Canal redefined the map of global shipping. Instead of tracing the long arc around the Cape of Good Hope, ships could move straight through Egypt, linking the Mediterranean and Red Seas in a single engineered cut. The impact was immediate. Sailing distance between Europe and Asia dropped sharply, reducing the time and fuel needed for each round trip. Shipping companies quickly adopted the canal as their preferred corridor, and they built schedules and port rotations around this new spine. The economic logic was simple. Fewer days at sea meant more voyages per year and lower costs per container. Over the decades, the Suez route became the backbone of east to west trade, handling a growing share of the world's goods. Yet the system remained sensitive to disruption. Whenever risk or cost conditions changed, for example from conflict, insurance premiums, or blockages, carriers could and did swing their routes back around Africa almost overnight. The Suez shortcut has always offered speed and savings, but only when the corridor is open and secure. By late 2023, global shipping lines faced a stark operational dilemma. A series of attacks and security incidents near the Bab el Mandeb Strait triggered a wave of routing advisories from flag states and naval coalitions. Insurers responded by classifying the entire Red Sea corridor as high risk, raising war risk premiums to levels that forced carriers to recalculate every voyage. Company risk teams, working with underwriters and security consultants, issued new guidance: suspend Red Sea transits where possible, prioritize crew safety, and seek alternative routes. Within weeks, industry-wide avoidance of the Red Sea took hold. Major lines announced that most Asia to Europe services would bypass the Suez Canal entirely, shifting to the longer route around the Cape of Good Hope. This was not a uniform decision, but a series of parallel moves, each grounded in risk assessments and the hard math of insurance and liability. The mechanics were clear. As long as the Red Sea was treated as a war risk zone, even the time and fuel savings of the Suez shortcut could not offset the potential costs of an incident or the spike in premiums. Carriers updated their routing algorithms and notified customers of revised schedules. Port agents in Egypt and the Mediterranean saw container arrivals drop dramatically. Meanwhile, ports along the southern tip of Africa reported a surge in calls and anchorage demand. The shift was not driven by a single event, but by a chain of institutional responses, advisories, risk ratings, and insurance terms that filtered quickly through the industry. For a sector built on reliability, the logic was unavoidable. When congestion and risk exceed a certain threshold, the map itself gets redrawn. This operational calculus would continue to shape every routing decision as the industry eyed a possible return to the Red Sea in 2026. Rerouting ships around the Cape of Good Hope is not just a question of drawing a longer line on the map. Every extra day at sea absorbs a slice of the global fleet, tying up vessels that could otherwise be making additional voyages. For planners, the difference is stark. A round trip between Asia and Northern Europe via the Cape can take up to 2 weeks longer than the Suez shortcut. That means more fuel burned, higher crew and charter costs, and fewer trips per year for each ship. To keep weekly services running on time, carriers have to assign more vessels to the same loop, stretching their fleets and reducing flexibility elsewhere. Even small changes in distance ripple through the system. When a route stretches by thousands of miles, the number of ships required to maintain a fixed schedule jumps. Fuel costs also climb sharply. The longer Cape Detour demands more bunker fuel for every voyage, raising operating expenses at a time when margins are already tight. Some carriers respond by slowing down, known as slow steaming, to save fuel, but that extends voyage times even further and can disrupt carefully calibrated delivery windows. The combination of longer trips and higher costs puts pressure on freight rates, especially when demand is steady or falling. For fleet managers, the Cape route is a trade-off. It offers resilience in the face of Red Sea risk, but at the cost of efficiency. Each additional day at sea ties up ships, crews, and containers, and limits the industry's ability to respond to new demand or sudden disruptions elsewhere. As a result, the detour does not just change the map, it reshapes the entire rhythm of global shipping. When ships switch from the longer Cape route back to the Suez shortcut, the effect is not just a matter of saving days at sea. Port planners see the change in dockside schedules. Services that used to arrive days apart can suddenly land in quick succession, compressing a previously steady flow into a tight cluster. Operators call this bunching. Container yards and crane teams, set up for regular intervals, are forced to handle a surge, with several large vessels arriving at once, each demanding berth space, yard slots, and inland transport. Even a handful of ships arriving together can strain terminal capacity, slow unloading, and send ripple effects through rail yards and truck gates. For planners, the question is not only which route ships take, but how the timing of their arrival reshapes the entire rhythm of the port. Shipping companies are not moving in lockstep as 2026 unfolds. Instead, each carrier weighs its own risk models, insurance terms, and operational priorities before making any changes. CGM has restarted select services through the Suez, freeing up ships and shortening round trips. Others, like Maersk, are running isolated test voyages and keeping most mainline loops on the longer Cape route. Most global container traffic still avoids the Red Sea entirely, leaving Suez Canal volumes about 60% below pre-crisis levels. Industry analysts describe 2026 as a transition year, not a full reset. The signals to watch are clear: rising container transits through Bab el Mandeb and Suez, broader carrier service announcements, and visible drops in war risk insurance premiums are the operational signs to follow. These indicators, capacity release, insurance rates, and carrier schedules, will reveal whether the Red Sea is truly open for business or still on the industry's watch list. As global shipping recalibrates, the Red Sea remains a test of resilience and risk. Every vessel that returns redraws the world's supply map in real time. In 2026, the real choke point is not just geography. It is the balance between caution and necessity. The future sails through uncertain waters.